All right. Warm welcome, everyone, to yet another enlightening session that we are organizing on behalf of Sphere India's Education Sector Committee, Sphere India Academy Platform, and Bal Raksha Bharat. I extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you to the sensitization session on education in emergencies. So, as you all know, in country like India, where natural disasters like flood and landslides are all too frequent, children are one of the most vulnerable, and their educations are affected in various ways. And frequently, education is the first service that is disrupted and last to be restored. So, this disruption in education can have severe long-term consequences. Sorry for that. And it can have severe long-term consequences in children. And it is absolutely important that we ensure the continuity of education during these emergencies. So it is essential that we put on more efforts on capacitating and equipping organizations, government, frontline workers, and all other stakeholders in education and emergency so that we can make sure that people of all ages can continue learning even when there is a crisis like war, violence, natural disasters, or health emergencies. And I know that you all would have a question in mind, which is like, what ways can we ensure this continuity in education and what all can be done and what are different roles that different stakeholders can play, etc., etc. So anyways, in this session, we'll definitely learn about all this. And it is important because education helps protect people physically and mentally, and we can even save lives during tough times. So without any further delay, I would like to start today's session. And before inviting a speaker, I would like to hand it over to Mintu sir. Sir, if you can hear me. Yeah. Sir, welcome to the session, sir. And we are very happy to collaborate with Save the Children for this session. So if you can give a small context on why we're doing this session, and if you can also mention a line about the Education Sector Committee, it would be very great. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Hina. And very welcome to all the participants for today's session on the education and emergency. As we all have a great experience, especially during the COVID and recent emergency in India, we have seen ourselves that the education sector is so important to be considered as part of our humanitarian response. During the COVID period, we have seen that at least 2 years, children lost their education. It's a huge gap, which is very difficult to, cover, post, COVID scenario. From that learning, it is now very important that education in emergency is the part and parcel of any humanitarian response. We have done a lot of good work in school safety, but we still need to go along, little far on the education and emergency. As we all know that Sphere India Education Sector Committee lead the civil society chapter, especially on the two agenda, school safety and education and emergency in India. This is the first session where we are actually investing ourselves that to sensitize and orient all of you a basic understanding on the education and emergency and what is it and how it works, why it is important. The most important component is the why it is important. And expectation for us is that once we all are sensitized, we may actually start looking in this education emergency in our respective, respective role, respective organization, and respective day-to-day work. Our experiences say that a very clear roadmap on education emergency is instrumental for the organization who is working on the ground in education sector as well as for the government. Our larger ambition is that in coming days, we also want to organize a face-to-face training, especially on education in emergency, to build a capacity in the country, a group of people capacitated in the country who can be deployed at any circumstances, for especially to deal with the education emergency context in the country. There will be series of session, online session, and all of your willingness, participation, and interest will help us to actually organize the face-to-face training this year. We will be bringing global experts here and also local experts here, bringing a holistic idea from global to local, local to global, and create our own capacity in the country, a cohort of people trained on education emergency. That is the long-term objective we have. Thank you very much, Rachel, from Save the Children International Asia Regional Office, who has agreed to help us, and especially for today's training and upcoming sessions. I wish all of you this particular session will enrich your knowledge, especially on the education emergency. And thank you very much, Fear India, along with Bal Raksha Bharat here in India, organizing this webinar and series of webinar and upcoming education emergency training. Thank you very much. Over to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Mintu sir, for your words. So without any further delay, I would like to move on to our main session today. So before that, I would like to introduce the speaker for the day to you all. So we have Ms. Rachel Furman, who is a regional advisor for education in emergencies at Save the Children's Asia Regional Office and a part of humanitarian technical team. Rachel's role in the HTT is to ensure quality education program during humanitarian response and build the capacity of country offices in the region to embed education in their response to various emergencies. Part of her function also is to support country offices and advocate for Save the Children to fulfill its commitment as the global cluster lead agency for education. Rachel has also been involved in humanitarian work since 2014, starting when she was an education program staff in Save the Children Philippines. In her role in HTT, she supported the Central Sulawesi earthquake and tsunami response in Indonesia 2018, Rohingya refugee response, Afghanistan humanitarian response, Save the Children's cyclone emergency response 2018 in Mozambique, and recently the Ukraine response in Poland. Rachel is a special needs teacher by profession and training. She is, so ma'am, we are privileged to have you with us to take the session. And hello, am I audible? I just got a message that
Yes, audible.
Audible. All right. Thank you. So as I was saying, Ms. Rachel, we are very happy to have you to take us a session. I would like to hand over the session to you.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clear.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm very happy to be joining this webinar and speaking to all of you here. 68 participants, very impressive. I am very happy with the interest on education in emergencies. And I would also just like to thank Hannah and Mintu in their opening remarks. I think those are really wonderful words to say about education in emergencies. And it's always good to hear fellow advocates for education in emergencies, because like what was mentioned earlier, it's one of those sectors that is always the first to be affected, but last to be renewed or resumed. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm joining you from the Philippines. I am, I think, 3 hours ahead of India. So I would get to it. I do have a few slides to go over, but if you have any questions, I may not see them right away. So I would appreciate if Hannah or somebody else from Sphere can just notify me and interrupt me if there are any questions that need my response.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So we have a few topics to cover. First is the foundational concepts and frameworks of education in emergencies, like what are the international frameworks that would support or are the basis for education in emergencies. What are the barriers to and the aims of education in emergencies? How do we do, or what is quality and integrated EIE? We will also describe here the humanitarian development nexus and where EIE is, or how it all relates with EIE. Okay, so let me just reiterate what was mentioned earlier by Mintu, that this is just a teaser. Okay, this is very light touch discussion on EIE. There's a lot more to talk about when we talk about EIE and to deep dive into EIE. So you may have a lot of questions and perhaps we won't be able to address all of them, but perhaps it's better for me to refer you to more resources that you can go over on your own. So when we talk about foundations of EIE, there are three main foundations that we will touch on. First is the humanitarian principles. Second, the Sustainable Development Goals. And the third is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which I think all of these are quite familiar for most of you. So the humanitarian principles are the moral rules and values that guide our work. We are all humanitarian workers in this call, I think, or most of us are. And they are necessary conditions to reach affected populations.
Great.
All right. If you can please mute your mic. Thank you so much. So our ability to implement quality EIE programs depends on our ability to adhere to these principles. So what are these principles? First is humanity. Humanity, the principle of humanity means that human suffering must be alleviated wherever it occurs. The goal of humanitarian action is to protect life and health while ensuring respect for human beings. The second principle is neutrality. Humanitarian actors must not take sides in hostilities or engage in controversies of a political, racial, religious, or ideological nature. The third principle is impartiality. Humanitarian action must be carried out on the basis of needs alone, making no distinctions on the basis of nationality, race, gender, religious belief, class, or political options. Finally, the fourth principle is independence. This means that humanitarian action must be autonomous from the political, economic, military, or other objectives that any actor may hold that compromises the ability to act in accordance with the core principles. Okay, now looking at these principles, maybe you can type on the chat why we need these principles. If you're a humanitarian worker, we're responding to emergencies, why do you think these principles are important or are needed? And I will just give you maybe a minute to put your responses in the chat. Why is it important to adhere to humanity, neutrality, impartiality, independence? Or if you would like to serve those who are in need better, yeah. Because that means we are not taking sides, right? And if they're in need, then we serve them, we provide them with the necessary aid. Anyone else would like to type? Right, no one is left behind, regardless, again, regardless of their affiliation to any religious beliefs or maybe political affiliations. They are not going to be left behind, right? So we don't discriminate against them regardless of what their color of their skin is, and especially children. So guide to organizations and workers in providing aid that is fair, effective, and respectful. Okay, equitable access to resources. Thank you so much for your responses. I will move on to another framework that supports education in emergencies. Something that you would be familiar with as well, Sustainable Development Goals. So the SDGs are 17 goals that all United Nations member states have committed to reaching by 2030. The SDGs recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and encourage economic growth, all while tackling climate change and preserving our planet. Many of the goals are linked to education. So, for example, education can reduce inequalities if we support marginalized children to go to school. A good education can help improve job opportunities and reduce poverty. Right? So they're linked with education. Most of them are linked with education. So while we're looking at all these and how they're linked to education, of course, there is also one specific goal for SDG on quality education, which is SDG 4. So that is, this is SDG and how it relates to EIE. And finally, we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. The UNCRC was developed in 1990 to formalize the rights of children everywhere. So again, it enshrines the right for all children, including those in emergency. So these are the rights of children according to the UNCRC. Okay. So the barriers to and aims of EIE. This is the dictionary definition of emergency. So let me just give you a few seconds to read that. But what is useful to note in this definition is the latter part, which is that it exceeds the ability of affected population to cope using only its own resources. So what is considered an emergency in one place might not be in another. This definition also helps us decide when an education and emergency response is necessary and when we can transition back into development programming. And emergencies can be separated into 4 categories. Some may fit neatly into one category, but some are combination, just like famine or like what we just had, the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of them may have been caused by a natural hazard and can actually be avoidable with the right response. But the boundary between the two is increasingly very fluid, especially with the impacts of climate change. So this is just some examples of emergencies, the ones that we call rapid, like earthquake, maybe with not enough early warning, or it happens immediately and very little lead time. And then you have the slow onsets like drought, an epidemic. And then on the other side, you have the human-made, just like famine, or war, civil unrest, and terrorist attacks. So for India, what are the relevant emergencies that you have been faced with, or which ones that have you responded to? Maybe you can also write that in the chat. Right. Yeah, flooding. And I would assume that because India is such a big country, that there would be different types of hazards and emergencies that would be more common depending on the area, right? Yeah. Thank you. Now, the number of emergencies and humanitarian crises is increasing, and global trends indicate that this is only going to get worse. This means that the number of children deprived of the right to education and the opportunity for well-being, literacy, and numeracy will grow. An earthquake destroys schools, learning materials, and administrative systems. Violent conflict causes parents to hesitate to send their children to school, fearing that they will be victims of attacks, recruitment of armed forces, and sexual violence. So just recently, for example, the entire world was in the middle of unprecedented emergency, a health pandemic. Schools were closed for more than a year in many countries in our region. But what exactly are the impacts of disasters and emergencies on children's education? Let's look at the long-term and immediate impacts on children. So let's start with the child, right? These are some of the impacts of emergencies on children. So the child or children may be injured, physically displaced, some may actually die, or cause psychological stress. Of course, children may be missing their exams. We usually have like national exams. And I think for some countries during COVID, some children also missed their exams. Of course, there's risk of abuse, early marriage, disruption of family and peer support when they are displaced, for example, or when their family members are affected physically, either they die or get injured. The loss of daily routine and structure. Sorry. Chronic absenteeism. Illness, risk of abuse, increased vulnerability to other hazards. How about the school and community? And maybe I can ask you to write on the chat, what do you think will be the impacts on the school community? If there is a hazard, if there is an emergency, what would be the impacts on the school community? So when we talk about school community, we talk about the people around the school, the people within the school, even so we talk about the teachers, the learning environment, the families around the school and the community. So we have definitely, even teachers will be affected. School closures, loss of infrastructure for sure. So not just the school itself, sometimes even the roads going to school. Parents can be distracted and not prioritize children's education or well-being. Economic loss for teachers, yes. And then if the schools are used as temporary shelters or operation centers, disruption in the continuity of education system. Okay. Oops, sorry. So those are some. We have damage or destruction of learning environment, and even the roads to the schools or the learning environment, displacement, dispersion of school communities, including the teachers, the parents. Hang on. Okay. Sorry. My laptop kind of froze there. Greater access on, so sometimes the school will have to have new setups, like maybe multi-grade systems, and teacher space might be disrupted. They will not receive their salaries on time. Family livelihoods will also be disrupted or lost. And that means sometimes that the children will not be sent to school anymore. Loss of access to information. I think that also includes life-saving messages. So remember during COVID when the schools were closed and before the schools did remote learning, children and their parents had very little information on what's going on about the pandemic. They didn't know what COVID was. Most of them did not have access to that information. So what about the system? What would happen to the system? So these are some of the possible impacts and effects on the school system. So we can have increased cost for reconstruction. So meaning the money that would be allocated, that's supposed to be allocated for other costs, would have to be allocated just for construction. Displacement, loss of teacher force, inability to replace teaching force or equip teachers to deal with new challenges. Disruption of teacher recruitment, training, as mentioned earlier, the payroll, lowered quality of instruction, loss of administrative databases. So especially, so the records may be lost, displaced, or damaged. Politicization or inequity of curriculum. So the education has been used as a tool during conflict. So they can use the curriculum as an avenue to inject, their dogma. Massive influx of refugee or students or displaced populations, stress on existing systems to accommodate double shifting. So, for example, community A has a conflict, and the people from community A will move to community B. So the children will have to go and attend class in community B. So the schools there would be overburdened with the number of additional children. So maybe they would have less insufficient number of teachers or insufficient number of classrooms. So that's just one possible effect. And as mentioned, reallocation of education funding to other sectors, like what we've seen during COVID. Education was deprioritized and the money was reallocated to a lot of the health services. New demands such as coordination with aid agencies, new policy demands, managing grants, rebuilding systems and infrastructure. So there's just more new needs that are created. So just to summarize, emergencies can both create new barriers to children accessing quality education, such as the destruction of learning space, and increase pre-existing issues to the extent that they create barriers to children accessing quality education. So that's, as an example, is poverty, like when the parents or the people, the families lose their livelihood because of the emergency. And this makes their socioeconomic status worse, so they dive deeper into poverty. So this can also affect children's education. But when we talk about education, barriers to education, we talk about not just access, which means children able to go to school. We also have to think about barriers to learning, not just barriers to education, but also to learning itself. So we need to recognize that as well as being physically in the classroom, children need to participate and achieve. The quality of teaching has implications for children's access to learning. Without quality teaching, children aren't able to learn. So we still need to definitely look into quality, even during education and emergencies, because this will definitely impact children's achievement as well. Now, this diagram summarizes what we have just discussed. Emergencies can increase barriers to education, disrupt learning and development, and increase risks for children. EIE programs aim to reduce the barriers, limit disruption, allow learning to continue wherever possible, improve the quality of education, and help protect and mitigate contextual risks. So if our ultimate goal is that children survive, are protected, and learn, there are a few things we need to contribute in order for this to happen. Firstly, we need to provide physical and psychological protection. Physical protection might include providing a safe space from violence, exploitation, and harm, and also sharing of life-saving information such as health, hygiene, mind risk education, just to name a few. And also includes psychological protection, which can mean creating a sense of normalcy and routine. And this is very critical to the healing process of children, as well as providing structured play and activities that build social and emotional resilience. We also need to make sure that learning continues. EIE programs can minimize the disruption to learning and prevent dropout. So remember, the longer children are out of school, the harder it is to get them back. And we can try to build back better. An emergency is an opportunity to improve on the pre-existing education system. That is, improve access to education for vulnerable children and improving quality of education by providing training on pedagogy, safeguarding, protection, psychosocial support, and so on. So together, these three overarching aims contribute to children's survival, protection, continued learning, and improved learning outcomes. Give me 1 second. All right, thank you. So with this theory of change in mind, here is the definition of education in emergencies. EIE is a set of linked activities that enable structured learning to continue in times of crisis, long-term instability, and directly contribute to survival and development of children. So I'll give you a few seconds to really internalize the definition of EIE. So linked activities, which means they're not standalone. It's not just when we talk about activities in EIE, this is linked to other things that we do that are relevant to children's development and survival. And we look at the term structured learning to continue. So it's not just any kind of, activities. There is a structure to it. And again, contributing to survival and development of children. Why do we do EIE? What are the rationale for EIE? Okay. First, that EIE protects. So for every hour that the child is in a temporary learning space, that is an hour away from harm from harm like physical harm or being abducted. As long as those temporary learning spaces are safe and secure for them. So EIE protects both physically and psychologically. So They offer protection against exploitation and harm and create a sense of normality and routine. And that is part of the psychological protection. Second is that it can be a life-saving platform. EIE is where we can teach children life-saving messages. It can also be a platform for us to deliver other interventions such as food, water, and sanitation and health services. Third is that it sustains communities. Education programs help children and young people to continue learning and reduce interruption to their schooling. And having schooling in place aids early recovery, creates greater stability in communities, and nurtures hope for the future among children. So when children go to school, even during emergencies, we think of these children as the people who will rebuild their community after the emergency. And we have seen that education is always consistently prioritized by communities during emergency or humanitarian responses. Fourth is, of course, EIE builds knowledge. It helps them develop core life skills such as problem solving and decision making, and also working and living alongside others. So they can also learn new skills through vocational training and even catch up on missed schooling. Fifth is that it strengthens resilience of children. So, for example, having DRR programs in education curriculum, including preparedness planning, these will strengthen children's ability to deal with future emergencies and mitigate the impact of disasters. In conflict situations, peace education can increase children's understanding of the conflict and bring about peace and reconciliation. Education programs help children and young people to continue learning and reduce interruption to their schooling. And as mentioned earlier, having schooling in place aids early recovery. And finally, we do EIE because education is a right. It's not a privilege. Now we move on to quality and integrated EIE. And just to say, yes, we do have to do quality EIE. But what does quality education mean then? So this is a general definition. Quality education should result in children progressing in their learning and gaining knowledge. However, it's not as simple as this. Quality education is also linked to well-being and overall development of children, both in the immediate term, in that it protects, creates social bonds, and provides life skills, but also in the long term, that it improves children's opportunities for future employment. So there are a few things that are needed for education to be provided in a quality way. We have the INEE minimum standards definition, Interagency Network on Education in Emergencies. That's what INEE stands for, and I will also provide you the link to this because this is an online site with lots of resources in EIE if you would like to learn more about EIE and the different topics that are related to it. So quality EIE means affordable, accessible, gender sensitive, and responds to diversity. So it includes safe, inclusive, and learner friendly. It has competent and well-trained teachers. It is appropriate and relevant curriculum. It is adequate, relevant teaching and learning materials. Okay, I've spoken a lot. I'm halfway through my presentation. I would just like to pause here before we move on to how do we make an EIE response quality. So I will pause and maybe take a few 2 or 3 questions if there are any. Like clarification. But if there's none, it's fine. I can continue. All right. There's no questions. Harsh, Vardhan. Okay, the challenge of teaching online. Right. So that's probably a question on quality. Is that correct, Harsh? Or would you like to elaborate a little bit on your question?
The question is, uh, simplistically, we saw online the COVID-19 challenges, and for a very long time, education was disrupted. And despite the technology being there and the curriculum being there, the system just could not deliver. The teachers were not prepared to dissipate education in a very engaging manner. And this is across globally. I mean, I've been a part of education system for years now, and I was checking as to what was happening worldwide. Uh, so my question is, how do we address that? Thank you.
Maybe it's not going to be a simple question to answer. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of reasons behind that. But with regard to emergencies per se, one of the reasons that we have to really look into is our preparedness. So while we were able to respond to with a new curriculum or a condensed curriculum, we were able to shift to online learning. I think one thing that we should look, of course, like we were talking about earlier about the teachers, and you also mentioned that the teachers were not able to deliver this as maybe the quality that's expected of them. And maybe the teachers, and this is a maybe because perhaps there are other things that we need to discuss when we talk about that. Maybe there's a lot of things that we need to talk about in terms of access to internet, in terms of children's readiness, also parent teachers' readiness to support children's online learning. And when we talk about preparedness, this means that there are things that we should be doing before an emergency to make sure that our system, our parents, our teachers are prepared to shift to online learning or to distance learning if that is an option for us. So that is my quick response to the question. But a lot of that can also be addressed, as I mentioned, addressed in terms of preparedness. And I think this is also something that we can that I can also elaborate a little bit more when we talk about the INEE minimum standards. Okay, no other questions. Hannah, do you think converting school to relief camps affect EIE? So we talked about EIE providing safe learning spaces or safe spaces for children. If their schools are being used as camps, when you talk about relief camps, is this like where you distribute materials or relief goods, or is this because in many countries that I have seen, schools are used as temporary shelter, so they're used as evacuation center. Is this what you mean by relief camps?
Yes, I would say in most of the rural areas, post-disaster, most of the government schools are converted into evacuation camps, and they stay there for quite a long period until the rehabilitation process. So I was wondering, since this is a very prevalent thing in rural areas, will that affect practicing EIE?
So I have a question for you before I respond to that. During when the schools are used as relief camps, are children able to use the schools for education, or are the schools closed for learning?
In a later stage, there will be small camps and all, not in every places. I have seen in a couple of places, but in general, the answer would be no.
They're not used
Because
they're not being used for schooling.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some NGOs and all do have interventions like that, but then in general, the primary purpose, one of the primary purpose wouldn't have education in it.
Yeah. So that is already a direct effect on children. They are not able to go to school because their schools are being used as for something else. So maybe just a quick sharing from my side about schools used as evacuation centers. So in the Philippines, in 2013, there was a strong typhoon called Yolanda. That's the local name. And it was just a lot of schools were damaged. But there were also a lot of infrastructure was damaged. The ones that are left standing, like the schools, were used as temporary shelter. And it's also prevalent in the Philippines to use schools as temporary shelters. They always say that the teachers say that after being used as temporary shelters, the schools go through another disaster because sometimes they use the desks and the chairs as firewood, and then everything is just left in disarray. So the schools are hardly are not good for children's education anymore. They have to clean up, they have to rebuild, they have to repaint. So in that way, it's not good for children, not just while it's being used as evacuation centers, but even after, because they can't go back to school right away. So we came up with a law. There was a law that was developed later on to prevent schools from being used as evacuation centers, and for local government units to build temporary evacuation centers so that the schools were not be used anymore. Of course, this is still not being observed in all the places in the Philippines, but I think that was a good start. So, and one of the things that the team did before they in Save the Children, before we advocated for this law, they created or they did the research and consulted children, and the children said when they were asked if it's okay that their schools are being used as shelter, they actually said yes, because it's their neighbors, it's their families that are also using the schools as shelter. But they said that we hope that there's still space for us to conduct our lessons in. So yeah, so it's not welcomed, but of course there should be a proper venue for and more comfortable venue for as temporary shelter. Hannah?
It makes sense. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll move on. Thank you for your questions. So how do we make sure that our EIE response provides quality education? So actually, we have the INEE minimum standards, and this is one way to ensure quality education during emergencies. It's a guide to help us prepare for. So that's what I was talking about earlier, that a lot of the questions on quality or concerns about quality can be better addressed during preparedness or pre-disaster. The standards are a guide to help us prepare for and respond to emergencies in ways that reduce risk, improve preparedness, and support quality of education. The standards are based on the UNCRC, Education for All and Humanitarian Charter, as well as helping us to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. All right. Just wondering, has anyone come across the INEE minimum standards? Maybe just a show of hands. Let me see if I can see your hands. And it's okay if you haven't. Am I seeing? Yeah, I'm not seeing any hands. So maybe you're more familiar with your namesake, the SPHERE standards. Yeah? Maybe you can just go off mute. Are you familiar with the sphere standards for emergencies? So the sphere standards does not include education in emergencies. So that's why um, that's why there was a separate standards that's developed for education in emergencies, and that is the INEE minimum standards. Oh, okay, sorry. There's a few of you that responded on the chat. Okay, so within the INEE minimum standards, yeah, thank you to Missy. Yeah, that's why we had to add, or there was a need to add specific resource for education in emergencies. So within the INEE minimum standards, there are 5 domains. So the 5 domains are what you see here: access and learning environment, teaching and learning, teachers and other education personnel, and education policy. And the 5th domain is community participation, coordination, analysis. These are called the foundational domain. Hannah, maybe you can mute. I think some of the microphones are going off mute accidentally. Thank you. So these are the standards, the domains in INEE. Within each domain, there are what we call standards, key actions, and guidance notes. Okay. So what you will be able to find within the INEE minimum standards for each of those domain, there is a discussion on standards. What are standards? Standards are what we want to reach. So with regard to, let's say, access and learning environment, there are a bunch of standards, what we want to reach, and they are qualitative. They are universal and applicable in any environment, meaning it is applicable for India. It is applicable if there is a response in Ukraine, or if there's another response in Myanmar. The standards would be applicable to any environment, but you do need to contextualize them. And then there will also be key actions. So what are needed to be taken in order to reach or meet the standard? And then under each domain, there are also guidance notes. So key actions are suggested ways to achieve the standard. Some actions may not be applicable in all contexts. They should be adapted to specific contexts. So us as practitioners can devise alternative actions so that the standard can be met. So what I'm saying is the standards will be the same regardless of the context, but the actions may vary. Thank you, Mintu, for posting the link. And finally, guidance notes to cover specific points of good practice to consider when applying the standards and adapting the key actions in different situations. They offer advice on priority issues and on tackling practical difficulties, while also providing background information and definitions. So I will just give you a very quick picture of what the INEE minimum standards are. So let's say within access and learning environment, these are the standards. Equal access, that's the first standard, meaning all individuals have access to quality and relevant education opportunities. The second standard under access and learning is protection and well-being, meaning learning environments are secure and safe and promote the protection and the psychosocial well-being of learners, teachers, and other education personnel. And the third standard is facilities and services. Education facilities promote the safety and well-being of learners, teachers, and other education personnel, and are linked to health, nutrition, psychosocial, and protection services. So I will not go through the entire resource, but now that you have the link and you're able to download it, this is just what you need to understand. right? When you see the standards, what are the key actions and the key guidance notes. And that's going to help you better understand and better able to use that resource. All right. Now, moving on to the topic of coordination, let's think about which is part of coordination as part of the minimum standards, which is on under foundational standard. Now, let's think about children more broadly than their education. What needs do children have? If you can maybe put this in the chat. So looking at children, what are the needs of children, not just on education? Can you maybe put that on the chat? What are the needs of children? Okay, supportive environment, sense of belonging, having friendly staff, safety and security, food, protection, enjoyment, of course, physical needs, safe shelter, recreation, play, yes, psychosocial needs. Thank you. Very, I think that's quite comprehensive. Of course, a healthy environment. Okay. So obviously, as you have seen, those are things that not only reflect or are not only able to be are not just under education, right? Children's needs are not sector specific. They have diverse needs, and a lot of them require support that is not just education. For example, health, nutrition. So these are just some of them. When you talk about biological, like food, nutrition, health, and then you talk about materials like the shelter, um, the clothing. They need proper clothes, right? Cognitive, so they need to go to school, of course. And then this is crosses over to the psychological needs. Emotional, we talk about having safe and secure environment, friendly staff or friendly um, or protective parents, emotional support, and social cultural. So all of these are um, what children would need. Okay, these are some examples. Okay, as mentioned, not all of these will be, education cannot address all of these, right? But education can be used as a platform to integrate all the other programs. So if you are working in WASH, there is an opportunity to do WASH within education and to address the other needs of children outside of education. So we should be doing integrated programming in education. How do we do this? Okay, in the education can be a platform. I mentioned this. For example, school vaccinations, school feeding program. School is the venue. You have the students within the school, and you're doing health and nutrition services within the school. Next is to link or refer. So we have children who are referred to other services that they need, such as health. For example, if there is malnutrition or they have an illness, then education cannot cover those. So education can refer them to other services. If there is the family struggling, then maybe they can be referred to FSL and cash. So we're not meaning that it doesn't stop within the classroom, and there is an opportunity to work with other sectors so that the different needs of children will be addressed. And the next opportunity is to jointly design and implement interventions. For example, within your organization, you are doing child protection training, and you do child protection training for community workers or community members. And there can be an opportunity there to do CP training with teachers within the same community. And how about, as I mentioned earlier, WASH in schools, planning and implementing WASH interventions in schools. So that can be through construction of facilities or hygiene messages. And finally, mainstreaming other sectors, for example, child protection. So ensuring that child protection is also integrated or mainstreamed within the education sector, or education in emergencies, like identifying protection needs of children who go to our EIE services. Or another is ensuring inclusion in our EIE. So and that's how we also mainstream. Okay. Again, I will give a pause here, and this is an opportunity to ask questions or to maybe share any reflections you may have at this point. Any questions? Maybe reflections or comments? Hannah, how much time do I have left?
Ma'am, we have approx 20 minutes left.
Okay. That would be sufficient, I think. Okay, if you don't have any questions right now, I can move on. All right. Okay, there is one. When there's an emergency and we can see that any of the children's needs are being disrupted, how can we bridge the gap at different levels? Progyanika, can you elaborate a little bit on your question? If you can go off mute.
Um, Thank you for the time. Actually, I wanted to know that, like, as you mentioned, there are different needs of a child, right?
Mhm.
So at the time of emergency, it's very certain that some of their, even the basic needs are, not being fulfilled, because the situation, the conditions are as such. But as someone who would try to um, uh, compensate at least some of the, like, needs, uh, some of the needs of the child, how can we do that? And it's very like, it's very kind of clear that we will not be able to do everything all by ourselves, right?
True.
So what are some of the ways where we can probably, like, integrate other spaces or agencies? What might be some of the ways to probably collaborate, or any other ways to cater to those needs at the
Right.
time of emergency? That's what
Yeah.
my question is.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating. I think that's a very relevant question, especially for this platform, um, because that's what the coordination mechanisms are for. Even for Save the Children, in many countries we have a large presence, but we're still not able to deliver on, or we're not able to address all of the gaps. That's why it's very important for us to be part of coordination mechanisms like Sphere, for example, in the case of India, um, education cluster, um, interagency clusters, because that's where we talk about what each other is doing and identifying where the gaps are. so that others can fill in and address those gaps. So let's say this is an education cluster. I know that sphere is not just education, right? This is intersectoral. But let's say it's an education cluster. So an education cluster, these are all partners working in the same sector, which is education. Um, and there is a tendency that several partners will be working, for example, in the same areas, or even in the same age group, maybe primary grades. And then you realize that there are no organizations currently maybe doing ECCD or early childhood, and that's how we identify that this group is not the needs of this group are not being met. So that's for within the education sector. And if we talk about intersectoral, it's very similar. If you, for example, you see you're working in education, huh? Let's say that, and then as we are working and delivering education services, we realize that there are a lot of children who are um, being married off, ver- girls that are being married off um, to address the poverty of families. So they're dropping out of school. So what do we do? Then within the intersectoral coordination group, then you discuss this with the protection cluster or with the protection with organizations that are doing protection, and then you can jointly design and implement programs that will address that. Or if you see more and more children dropping out because or not attending education um, activities because they don't have enough food, then you refer this to the food cluster or health and nutrition cluster. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you perfectly answered. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's very important. I know there's a lot of meetings during emergencies, but that's really what we want to get out of those meetings. Um, there's a question on can Sujata, when you say RTE, is this return to education or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Post
Um,
disaster, how to ensure RTE? Is it return to education?
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I,
So how do we, how do, or would you like to elaborate a bit?
uh, Actually, post disaster के समय में, are you able to understand Hindi?
Unfortunately, no, but I would have to ask Mintu or Hannah to maybe um, translate
Actually, I
if
want to
possible.
say during the time of disaster, yeah, post disaster, the kids are uh, sheltering a shelter. No, so sometimes the shelters may be most of the crowd, or and they are staying there up to 5 to 6 days. After that, some person, some families are 15 to 1 month, 2 months. Uh, During that time, how we ensure, because they are moving either and either, no schools are closed, and parents are moving to collect their food, so the
Mm.
children are lonely, and no one is in their home to looking after, and school. So they are most vulnerable during the time after the post disaster situation, because everyone is damaged and no hygienic condition, all are vulnerable condition. So during the time, how we ensure their educations can be protected, and because education is a habit, no, if they will not read and write every day, then they will be forgotten their what they have understood, or what they have uh, learned. So
Yeah.
how we practice their education during that period, and that is
So
the
that's
point.
Yeah, so that's what education in emergencies would like to do. Make sure that children are able to continue learning, because as you've said, if they do not practice these
Yeah.
skills, they forget, right? So that's what we want to do, make sure that there's no gap in learning. How do we encourage them to attend or to do education in emergencies, or to attend education in emergency activities? That requires a lot of community mobilization. Um, we have to speak with parents and make sure that they recognize the importance of sending their children to school, especially after disasters. Um, and maybe some specific activities that we can do, I will be sharing a little bit after this quick Q&A. So I can talk a little bit more about specific EIE activities that can be done um, with children. So I will just look at the chat. During emergency, how can we adapt to teaching strategies to ensure inclusion and active participation of children, especially with disabilities?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a big question to respond to.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
right.
And children are also multiple sector like disability, blind, HIV, AIDS,
Mhm.
multiple vulnerability
Right.
within how it combinedly teaching and learning provide to them.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm responding now to Turmizi's question. How can we adapt the teaching strategies to ensure the inclusion and active participation of all children, especially those with disabilities? So just specifically, there is what we call the teaching and crisis context resource, which you can also find in the INEE website. And that is a resource that we can um, use for on teachers or during an emergency or after a disaster, to enhance their knowledge and skills, especially in a new context like post disaster. Um, because we want to make sure that all children, will still be able to participate in our EIE activities. There are specific activities or specific ways that we can ensure that all children will be able to participate, especially those with children with disabilities or even children with from different language groups. And those are within the key actions of the INEE minimum standards. So there are some examples in the key actions of INEE minimum standards that you can also explore. All right. I think those are all the questions on the chat. I will move on to the next slides because what I'm going to maybe just quickly over are some common EIE interventions. Not all of it. Again, it would depend on the context, the type of emergency, um, the kind of resources that we have, the preparedness that we have, vulnerabilities of the population. But these are just common activities, okay? So it's not complete, but just some of the usual things that we do in EIE. And these are mostly pictures. So how do we do EIE? Or what are the activities that we can do in EIE? First is learning life skills, life-saving skills and information. So you can see here, this is a resource from Thailand. Um, it's on wash, right? Washing hands. This was developed during COVID. Um, and that is life-saving because that is minimizing or ensuring the risks for children to contract um, COVID-19 is minimized. And then you have the disaster risk reduction. This is the what they're doing after an earthquake. So uh, India is quite familiar with earthquakes, unfortunately, just like the Philippines. Um, and when you have a large earthquake or a big earthquake, you usually have aftershocks, right? So even after an earthquake, children should still know what to do if there are aftershocks, and that's part of life-saving skills and information. And this is a group of children during COVID again that is a recorded lesson. This is in Bangladesh, and children are listening to the children here. I mean, to the recorded message. Next type of activity is provision of teaching and learning materials. Usually, when there is an emergency, children lose their learning materials. If there's a flood, the bags may and the notebooks may get wet. So we replace them, right? So it's to replace them so that they can return to school, so that that is not a barrier anymore. It also motivates them. You remember when you were kids and you have a new bag and new supplies, didn't that excite you and make you excited to go to school? So this is just an example of what we can provide children so that um, they won't really have this as a barrier to going to school. Okay. Another kind of activity that we can do within EIE is home-based learning. And I think, and you've seen this during COVID, most of us have done home-based learning because it was not safe for children to go to a learning space outside of their homes. We're also seeing this right now in Myanmar because of there's active conflict and children can't go to school. Their schools are closed because it's not safe for them to travel to school. The schools are not safe. So the learning is happening at home. Right now in the Philippines, it's summer. It's very, very hot. And the schools are not comfortable. So I think in some areas here right now, we've closed the schools. The schools or the children are not going to school, but they are doing home-based learning. So um, they are using modules to learn their lessons. So that is another example of home-based learning. Okay, another example of what we do in EIE is temporary classrooms. So we build them, we build temporary learning centers or classrooms. So this is an example here. This is in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh for children from the Rohingyans who are based in Cox's Bazar now. This is their temporary learning center. These are temporary classrooms. They're very nice. They're temporary, but we've actually designed them to be like almost semi-permanent because these are classrooms that we built in Indonesia after the earthquake. The classrooms, the schools were badly damaged, and we thought that tents will not last, and it will take a long time for schools to be rebuilt. So we thought that the temporary classrooms should at least be very sturdy. So we made them semi-permanent. These are tents that we've also put up and used after the earthquake in Indonesia. This was put up like within the first week after the earthquake. So while we were doing the construction, the children were learning here. We actually taught them like what to do if there are aftershocks. We just provided some play activities, structured play activities with them in those tents because obviously it's not for a long time. These are temporary classrooms in the Philippines after a conflict in Marawi. So Marawi is one city in south of the Philippines. And these children are coming from another city from Marawi and they moved to another city. So the schools were not able to accommodate them in their existing classrooms because there were a lot of children that had to join. So we put up these temporary classrooms so that children can resume learning. Eventually, we provided them with proper chairs, but these were just like the first few weeks after. Okay, mobilization and training of teachers and education personnel. So we talked about the teachers in crisis context resource. and that can be used to train teachers after an emergency, because perhaps these are there are topics that they're not very familiar with but are needed during an emergency response. So those are some examples. Again, any questions from the group, or maybe again for some reflections? Okay, no questions. These are the online resources. There is actually an online course on Kaya. Hannah, are we going to give this deck to them?
Yes, we will be, if you send.
So I will also just post this on the chat, I think. So Kaya is it's a website that you can go to, and there's an online course. So if you want to learn more about EIE or some other related topics for EIE, there's a lot of those courses online there. And then you have the INEE website, which is I okay. Now I'm seeing some questions. Okay, during emergency, we can do child-friendly space, right? Yes. So not only temporary classroom for education, but can also be used for mental health. Exactly. You know, in some emergencies, like what I said, sometimes, all these interventions would really depend on the context. In some areas, you don't really have a lot of space. So we have multi-purpose spaces. You have one tent or one venue, which can be used for learning. It can be used for play. It can be used for after classes. Sometimes mothers use it to learn more about breastfeeding and nutrition for children. So it can be a multi-purpose venue. It's just a venue. So child-friendly space slash TLS slash breastfeedings space. It can be what you want it to be, but it's just a space that you will deliver services. Rishma, I'm sorry, I'm not very clear on your question. If you would like to explain it. Oh, maybe that's a question for Hannah. Hannah, there's a question about joining Sphere.
Definitely, Reshma. The question is more about like to serve the community. So if you are talking particularly in regards to education and emergency works, what you can do is like kindly join to the series of session that we will be organizing later this year. We'll have an in-person webinar, which will be again on education and emergency. And like you will be eventually, we can put you in the roster where, so in case of there is any emergency response is required, sorry about that. So if there is any emergency required, we can connect with you or we can contact you either through Baraksha Bharat or like Sphere's response team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if you have any questions, you may also get in touch with me. This is my email address. or you can get in touch with Mintu if you already know him, or some of those websites that I just posted on the chat. You can also go to them. Lots of resources that you can find there if you want to learn more about education in emergencies. And that ends my presentation right on time. Thank you.
Anna, you are in mute.
Yeah, I was saying if there are any questions, we can wait for one more minute. It was definitely a very engaging session. So I'll just stay for 1 more minute and then see if there is any questions. Yes, the presentations will be shared to the participants. All right. So I think we have also on time. So before saying anything, I would like to extend a big thank you to Ms. Rachel. Thank you so much for your time. The session was quite informative. We got a very good overview about education in emergency. How can we understand it better? How can we practically work this out? And also you gave us a lot of case studies, which was quite interesting to know. Thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of Sphere India Education Committee and also from Balraksha Bharat and Sphere, we would like to extend a big thank you to you for your time. And we hope that we have more series on education in emergency so we can actually mainstream EIE in the upcoming disasters. So also I would like to extend a big thank you to Balraksha Bharat and Mintu sir and the team for helping us initiate the session and for taking a lead role in organizing this. Thank you so much, sir. And also I would like to thank all the participants who joined us. And I would like to let you know about the procedure for the certification. So post this session, you will be receiving a Google form, which is also a feedback form. And upon completing it, you will receive your certificate. So kindly fill the form and let us know your opinions. And if you have any questions, you will be able to address that there. And this is a series. We will be contacting you all for the upcoming sessions. So we hope to see you then. And so I hope this is not an end. We'll meet you again in the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel, Mintu sir, Balraksha Bharat team, and all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Anna.
you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rasha.